Avoidants can't believe you made them live with their final decision. Let's go back to that final moment. The moment they looked at you with that familiar detached coldness in their eyes and told you they needed space. Or maybe they said they weren't ready. Or perhaps they didn't say anything at all. They just slowly faded out, leaving you grasping at smoke. Think about their demeanor in that exact fraction of time. There was a strange, unsettling calm about them, wasn't there? A subtle, almost imperceptible smugness. When an avoidant pushes you away for the final time, they are operating under a very specific, deeply ingrained psychological algorithm. They are running a script in their head. And in that script, they have already written your reaction. They expected the panic. They expected the tearful voicemails. They expected the long, desperate paragraphs of text at 2 a.m, begging them to reconsider, pleading with them to see your worth. They expected you to shatter into a million pieces. Because historically, your anxiety has always been the safety net for their avoidance. Your willingness to chase them was the very thing that made them feel powerful. It validated their worth without requiring them to do the terrifying, vulnerable work of actually showing up for the relationship. They pushed, and you pulled. That was the dance. That was the predictable rhythm of their nervous system. But this time, you did something they never saw coming. You broke the algorithm. You didn't beg. You didn't cry. You didn't negotiate your worth or bargain for scraps of their affection. You looked at the closed door they just slammed in your face, and you simply locked it from the outside. You instituted absolute, unapologetic no contact. And right now, in the space you left behind, there is a deafening, terrifying silence. I need you to understand something fundamental about this silence. To a severely avoidant individual, your absolute silence is not just an absence of noise. It is a violent disruption to their reality. It is a psychological mirror forced directly into their face. You see, the first shock they experience isn't actually the loss of you. The first shock is the realization that you actually listened to them. They cannot believe, they simply cannot fathom, that you made them live with their final decision. Because the brutal truth of the avoidant attachment style is this: they rarely want you to disappear forever. They just want to control the exact distance between you. They wanted you to wait in the lobby of their life. They wanted you placed neatly on a shelf, gathering dust, but safely accessible for whenever their nervous system felt regulated enough to play with intimacy again. They wanted the comfort of your devotion without the burden of their commitment. By walking away, you did not just end a relationship. You destroyed their illusion of control. You handed them the exact thing they demanded: utter and complete separation. And in doing so, you handed them their own poison. You gave them the space they claimed they desperately needed, but you also gave them the permanent void that comes with it. In this deep dive, we are going to completely deconstruct what is happening inside the avoidant brain right now. We are going to map out the exact neuroscience of their delayed grief, the collapse of their ego, and the terrifying Phantom X phenomenon they are about to experience. We are going to expose the raw, unfiltered truth of what happens when the chaser finally stops chasing, and the avoidant is left entirely alone in the empty house they built with their own 2 hands. Listen closely, because the reality they are waking up to is far darker than you think. Let's talk about the first few weeks. When you walk away, the silence begins. But for them, it doesn't feel like a heavy, suffocating silence at first. It feels like a long, deep exhalation. I know this is the hardest part for you to hear. I know it feels deeply unfair. But to heal, we have to look at the brutal truth of their neurobiology. Right now, you are hurting. Your chest is tight. Your system is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. You are in the throes of emotional withdrawal. But they are experiencing something entirely different. They are experiencing profound relief. Let's break down exactly why the brain does this. Why does an avoidant feel relief when the person who loved them the most is finally gone? To understand this, you have to look at how their nervous system is wired. For a securely attached person, emotional intimacy is a safe harbor. It is where the nervous system goes to regulate and find peace. But for the severely avoidant individual, intimacy is interpreted by their amygdala, the brain's primitive threat detection center, as absolute danger. To them, closeness feels like engulfment. Vulnerability feels like a trap. Expectation feels like a cage. Your love, no matter how pure, no matter how patient, was constantly triggering their subconscious fight or flight response. So, when they finally push you away, and you actually stay away, The threat is removed. The perceived danger of being consumed by your love is suddenly gone. Instantly, their elevated cortisol levels drop. The subconscious alarm bells in their brain finally stop ringing. And in that immediate aftermath, they confuse this sudden drop in anxiety with happiness. They confuse the absence of a trigger with genuine peace. This is the phase we call the illusion of independence. During these first few weeks or even months, you might see them posting online. They might look vibrant. They might be throwing themselves into superficial hobbies, or working out constantly, or engaging in surface-level social interactions. From the outside, they look entirely unaffected by the devastation they just caused you. It looks like they have effortlessly moved on. But I need you to listen to me very carefully. What you are witnessing is not genuine joy. You are witnessing a neurological survival mechanism. You are witnessing what psychology calls deactivating strategies. Deactivation is the avoidant brain's ultimate superpower. It is a psychological anesthetic. When emotional intensity gets too high, their brain literally shuts down the neural pathways that process attachment, bonding, and grief. They go numb. They compartmentalize the relationship, lock the memories in a vault, and throw away the key. During this temporary high, their brain also rewards them with a sudden spike in dopamine. The sheer novelty of their newfound freedom creates a rush. They feel a powerful surge of autonomy. They look in the mirror and they tell themselves, "See, I am better off alone. I don't need anyone. I am strong. I am independent. I am finally in control." They are drunk on this illusion. They are floating on a thick protective cloud of emotional suppression. Because in their mind, they have successfully managed the distance. They have reset their emotional baseline back to zero. They don't miss you yet, because the anesthetic is still pumping heavily through their veins. The deactivation protocol is working perfectly. They think they have won. They think they have cleanly escaped the heavy, suffocating weight of emotional obligation without any consequences. But here is the brutal, inescapable reality about anesthesia. It always, eventually, wears off. And what happens when the numbness fades, but the person they pushed away is no longer there to break their fall? Let's talk about the dance, the exhausting, deeply predictable rhythm you two were locked into for months, or perhaps even years. You were caught in a behavioral loop, a psychological algorithm. They withdraw, you pursue. They put up a wall, you try to climb it. They go cold, you turn up the heat, desperately trying to keep the connection from flatlining. You became the designated chaser, and they became the runner. But here is the dark, unspoken secret about the runner. They actually deeply need the chaser. You might think your anxious grasping annoyed them. You might think your double texts, your long emails, and your pleas for basic clarity only pushed them further away. And on a surface level, yes, it triggered their feeling of being overwhelmed. But on a deeper subconscious level, your chasing was the lifeblood of their ego. Every single time you reached out after they pulled away, you were handing them a profound psychological gift. You were proving their worth. You were handing them the ultimate validation of being deeply loved, desired, and irreplaceable, with absolutely zero requirement for them to reciprocate. Your anxiety was their emotional insurance policy. In their mind, the script was permanently written. The core belief was cemented. I can step back as far as I want, and they will always bridge the gap. I can be as emotionally unavailable, as inconsistent, as guarded as I want, and they will simply try harder to love me. But then, you instituted no contact. You walked away. You swallowed your agonizing pain. You gathered whatever fragments of self-respect you had left, and you went entirely, absolutely silent. And in doing so, you didn't just end the dynamic. You broke their algorithm. Suddenly, the predictable script has been ripped to shreds. The runner looks back over their shoulder, expecting to see you panting, exhausted, still trying to catch up. But no one is there. The chaser has stopped running. The chaser has turned around, walked off the track, and gone home. In the field of neuroscience and behavioral psychology, this creates a phenomenon known as a reward prediction error. The brain anticipates a specific outcome based on ingrained past patterns. Their brain expected the dopamine hit of your desperate text message. It expected the ego boost of your voicemails. It anticipated the comforting, familiar annoyance of your pursuit, but instead, it gets nothing. A void. A blank, unresponsive screen. This is the exact moment the avoidant subconscious mind begins to glitch. The illusion of their absolute control starts to show tiny hairline fractures. Because if you aren't chasing them, Does that mean you finally realized they aren't worth the chase? If you aren't begging them to stay, does that mean you are actually okay with them leaving? This is a terrifying paradigm-shifting concept for the avoidant ego. It forces them to confront a reality they have spent their entire lives trying to escape. The reality that other people have limits. The reality that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance for neglect. By holding your ground in no contact, you have forced them into an emotional vacuum. They are no longer reacting to your pressure. You have removed yourself completely, and now for the first time, they have to sit in the cold, empty room of their own choices. They pushed you away fully expecting you to fight the current to swim back to them. But you didn't fight. You simply let the current take you. You made them live with the finality of their own words. And as the weeks begin to bleed into months, that initial feeling of relief we just talked about, it starts to curdle. The algorithm is broken. The validation is gone. The silence slowly stops feeling like freedom and starts feeling like an echoing, cavernous consequence. Let's talk about the passage of time, because time is the ultimate enemy of the avoidance deactivation strategy. In the beginning, time was their friend. It was the buffer that kept your anxiety away. It was the empty canvas where they painted their illusion of independence. But as the weeks slowly bleed into months, something begins to shift in the quiet corners of their mind. The psychological anesthesia we talked about earlier, it has a half-life. It cannot last forever. The numbness inevitably begins to thaw. And as the ice melts, a cold, creeping reality begins to set in. The reality of permanence. Up until this point, a part of their subconscious still believed you were just on standby. They viewed your absence not as a permanent loss, but as an extended pause. They thought you were out there somewhere, still nursing your wounds, still silently longing for them, still holding a space for them to return whenever they felt like it. But as your silence stretches out, unbroken, resolute, and absolute, the terrifying truth begins to penetrate their defenses. You actually listen to them. You are actually gone. This is when the avoidant brain triggers a highly specific, deeply painful psychological defense mechanism. In attachment theory, we call it the Phantom X phenomenon. To understand the Phantom X, you have to understand a bitter paradox. The avoidant brain is terrified of present-tense intimacy. When you were right in front of them actively loving them, their brain was scanning you for flaws. They magnified your imperfections. They convinced themselves you were too demanding, too emotional, or simply not the right fit. They had to devalue you in real time to justify the distance they were creating. But now that you are completely out of reach, now that you are a ghost, you are suddenly perfect. Because distance equals safety for the avoidant nervous system. When you are no longer a physical or emotional threat to their independence, their amygdala finally stops sounding the alarm. And for the very first time since they pushed you away, their suppressed attachment system slowly comes back online. With the threat of your closeness gone, their brain finally allows them to feel the love they had for you. They start remembering the good times, the inside jokes, the way you looked at them when they felt broken, the unparalleled safety of your embrace, the pure, unfiltered devotion you offered them, which they threw away. But this is a unique kind of psychological torture, because they are experiencing the warmth of your love only through the lens of memory. They are reaching out to touch a ghost, and the realization hits them like a physical blow. There is a massive crushing difference between wanting space and actually losing a human being forever. They wanted a breather. They wanted the pressure to stop. They wanted to feel autonomous again, but they did not want to be a closed chapter in your life. They did not want you to completely erase them from your future. They pushed you to the absolute edge, expecting you to fight your way back. But you looked over the edge, and you let go. You gave them exactly what they asked for. You gave them the absolute terrifying permanence of their own words. You made them live with their final decision. And as the Phantom X takes up residence in their mind, haunting their quiet evenings and their empty passenger seats, the avoidant is forced to look at their own reflection. They are forced to realize that the danger was never you. The danger was their own inability to accept love. But this realization does not bring them peace. It brings a profound, unsettling anxiety. Because to admit they made a mistake is to face a level of shame their ego might not survive. Let's talk about the mind-bending reality of cognitive dissonance. Right now, the avoidant is standing in the middle of a collapsing illusion. The Phantom X is haunting them. The weight of your permanent absence is starting to crush the oxygen out of their daily life. Deep down in the very core of their nervous system, a terrifying truth is trying to claw its way to the surface. The truth that they made a catastrophic mistake. But the avoidant ego is a fortress of self-preservation. It is built entirely around avoiding one specific agonizing emotion, shame. To an avoidant, admitting they sabotaged a beautiful, loving relationship is not just a mistake. It is a psychological death sentence. It triggers their deepest, most unhealed core wound. The subconscious belief that they are fundamentally broken, that they are defective, that they are incapable of sustaining love. Their brain cannot handle this level of shame. It cannot hold two violently opposing beliefs at the same time. It cannot believe, I am a rational person who needed necessary space, while simultaneously believing, I foolishly destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. In psychology, we call this agonizing mental clash, cognitive dissonance. When the brain experiences cognitive dissonance, it feels it as literal physical danger. It has to resolve the conflict immediately. It has to find an escape hatch. And because the avoidant ego cannot tolerate the crushing weight of its own guilt, it does the only thing it knows how to do. It rewrites history. It shifts the blame. To survive the pain of losing you, they must turn you into the villain. They must twist your dignified silence into an act of betrayal. And this is where the cruelest, most absurd lie of the avoidant life cycle is born. They look at your strict no contact. They look at your absolute refusal to chase them anymore. And they whisper a poisonous narrative to themselves to soothe their fragile ego. They tell themselves, if they really loved me, they wouldn't have given up so easily. They tell themselves, if they actually cared, they would have reached out by now. They would have fought for me. They just walked away, which proves I was right to protect myself in the first place. Listen to the sheer breathtaking absurdity of this mechanism. They built a massive, impenetrable wall. They locked the gate. They stood at the top and told you in no uncertain terms that you were entirely too much, that they could not give you what you needed, that they wanted to be left alone. And for months or years, you bled on their barbed wire trying to climb that wall. You exhausted your spirit trying to show them your devotion. But the moment you finally stop bleeding, the moment you finally respect their boundaries, step back, and give them the exact isolation they demanded, they use your compliance as proof that you never loved them enough. They are angry at you for respecting their decision. They are punishing you for listening to their words. They are deeply resentful that you are making them live with the consequences of their own actions. This is not logic. This is a trauma response. This is a terrified, dysregulated nervous system desperately trying to project its own failure onto a safe target. And you were always their safest target. By making you the one who gave up, they get to walk away as the victim. They get to preserve their illusion of independence without having to face the terrifying mirror of their own self-sabotage. They use your silence as a weapon against themselves to keep their hearts sealed shut. But deep down, beneath the layers of denial, beneath the rewritten history and the shifted blame, the cognitive dissonance is still humming. The lie they are telling themselves requires a massive amount of psychological energy to maintain. And that energy is about to run out. Because no matter how hard you try to outrun the truth, the body always keeps the score, and their nervous system is preparing for a crash. Let's talk about the collapse, because the human brain is not designed to suppress reality forever. Repression is not a passive state. It is an incredibly active, exhausting, energy-draining biological process. For weeks, maybe months, their prefrontal cortex has been working overtime. It has been building walls, rewriting history, and desperately holding the door shut on their own emotions. They have been running on the fumes of their ego. But psychological energy is finite. You cannot outrun your own biology indefinitely. The body always keeps the score, and eventually, the dam breaks. This is the phase of the avoidant life cycle that most people never get to see. This is the avalanche of delayed grief. When you were anxiously attached or simply deeply in love, your grief hit you on day one. You felt the agonizing withdrawal immediately. You were on the floor, your chest caving in your nervous system, screaming in panic. You processed the devastation in real time. But the avoidant, they deferred their pain. They put it on a credit card. And now, the bill has come due with massive crushing interest. When the deactivation strategies finally fail, their nervous system experiences a catastrophic collapse. The limbic system, the emotional primal center of the brain, violently takes over. The very vault they locked all their feelings inside suddenly bursts open, flooding their bloodstream with a toxic cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline. But this time, the panic is not about engulfment. The panic is not about you being too close or too demanding or too present. The panic is about absolute terrifying abandonment. This is the ultimate tragic irony of the avoidant attachment style. Deep down beneath the cold exterior and the fierce independence, every severe avoidant harbors a profound, unhealed abandonment wound. They learned very early in life that people they love will eventually leave them or let them down. So they developed a preemptive strike. They push you away before you can abandon them. They control the rejection. But by instituting absolute no contact, you did not just walk away. You unknowingly mirrored their deepest, darkest childhood trauma right back at them. They created a scenario to protect themselves from abandonment, and in doing so, they engineered their own ultimate isolation. Suddenly, in the quiet of a Tuesday evening, or waking up at 3 a.m. to an empty room, the reality of what they have done crashes down on them. They are completely alone. They are drowning in the exact feeling they spent their entire life trying to avoid. And here is the most brutal part of their nervous system collapse. In the past, whenever they felt dysregulated, whenever the world felt too heavy, they had a secret weapon. They had you. Even if they pushed you away, even if they complained about your neediness, your consistent presence was the baseline of their emotional regulation. Your love was the gravity that kept them tethered to the earth. Now their nervous system is on fire. They are spiraling. They are desperately looking for an anchor. They subconsciously reach out into the dark to find the warmth of your validation. And they grasp nothing but cold, empty air. You are not there to soothe them. You are not there to absorb their mood swings. You are not there to endlessly forgive them, to coddle their ego, to tell them that everything is going to be okay. They are forced to sit in the ruins of the house they burned down, shivering from the cold, with absolutely no one else to blame. They must face the terrifying realization that the only person who truly loved them enough to fight for them was the very person they exhausted into silence. And as the panic sets in, as their nervous system desperately seeks a lifeline, they will inevitably try to test the waters. They will try to see if you are still waiting in the wings. Let's talk about the breadcrumbs. You know exactly what I mean. You are weeks, maybe months into absolute no contact. You have dragged yourself through the mud of your own grief. You are finally starting to breathe again. You are finally starting to sleep through the night. And then, out of nowhere, your phone lights up. It is a text, just one word. Hey! Or maybe it is a meme they know you would find funny. Maybe they watched all your Instagram stories within 2 minutes of you posting them. Maybe they sent a completely random, meaningless question about a TV show or a recipe, something they could have easily Googled themselves. In that split second, your heart stops, your stomach drops, your attachment system violently reawakens. You stare at the screen, analyzing every single pixel of that message, and your hopeful, empathetic brain starts spinning a beautiful narrative. They miss me. They realize what they lost. They woke up. They want to fix this. I need you to listen to me very carefully right now. I need you to brace yourself for the brutal clinical truth. They are not reaching out to fix anything. They are reaching out to regulate their own nervous system. Let's look at the exact neuroscience of a breadcrumb. In the last chapter, we talked about their collapse. Their deactivation strategies have failed. Their anxiety is peaking. Their cortisol is pumping. They are sitting in the dark, suffocating under the phantom weight of your absence. They are experiencing the terrifying withdrawal of losing their primary source of unconditional love. For a securely attached person, missing someone means reaching out with clarity and intention. A secure person says, I miss you. I made a terrible mistake. I want to do the work. Can we please talk? But a severely avoidant brain is absolutely terrified of intention. Intention requires vulnerability. Intention demands accountability. Intention means they have to step into the arena and actually face the damage they caused. They cannot do that. Their ego will not allow it. So instead of offering you a bridge, they throw a tiny pebble at your window. A breadcrumb is a low-risk, zero-investment bid for your energy. It is a psychological sonar ping. Think about how submarines operate in the deep pitch-black ocean. They send a sonar wave out into the darkness, and they wait for an echo to bounce back. That echo tells them what is out there. It tells them they are not alone. That is exactly what an avoidant is doing to you. They are pinging you in the dark. They are throwing a tiny, pathetic crumb of attention into your silence, just to see if the bird will still come running to eat out of their hand. If you reply, if you give them a paragraph of your feelings, if you ask how they are, or even if you just send back a polite single emoji, you just sent the echo back. And do you know what happens in their brain the exact second they see your reply? Ding, a massive hit of dopamine. Ding, instant ego validation. Ding, the emotional insurance policy is still active. Instantly, their dysregulated nervous system calms down. The panic subsides. You just proved to them that you are still waiting on the shelf. You are still completely accessible. You just gave them the exact hit of emotional validation they were craving. And the second they feel that soothing regulation, the second their anxiety drops, their deactivation protocol kicks right back online. The walls go back up. They go cold again. They leave your heartfelt response on red. And they disappear for another 3 weeks because they did not reach out to offer you a relationship. They reached out to use you as a human pacifier. They were bleeding out emotionally, and they wanted you to hand them a temporary bandage. This is why breadcrumbing is so deeply insidious. It is a parasitic behavior. It resets your healing back today. 1, it spikes your cortisol, it shatters your peace, while giving them exactly the hit of relief they needed to comfortably walk away from you all over again. They do not want to come inside the house, sit at the table, and build a life with you. They just want to jiggle the handle to check if the front door is still unlocked. But your absolute no contact, your dead silence, it is the deadbolt. When they throw a breadcrumb and you respond with deafening unapologetic silence, the sonar ping goes out into the dark and absolutely nothing bounces back. The dopamine does not arrive. The panic in their nervous system is not soothed, and they are forced to swallow the bitter, agonizing reality that the door is permanently locked. You are no longer their emotional supply. Let's talk about the ultimate paradox, the profound, tragic, and deeply crushing paradox of the severely avoidant mind. To understand the core of their suffering right now, you have to understand the fundamental flaw in their survival strategy. For their entire adult life, their nervous system has been running a corrupted program. They believe at a subconscious level that all love eventually leads to pain. They believe that if they allow themselves to fully attach to you, you will eventually discover their flaws and you will abandon them. So what does the avoidant brain do? It preemptively strikes. It manufactures a loss to prevent a loss. They trigger the breakup to avoid the devastation of a real breakup. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy born out of pure, unadulterated fear. But here is the devastating catch. When they walked away from you, when they gave you that cold speech about needing to find themselves, or needing space, or not being ready for a relationship, they did not actually want to sever the tie completely. They did not want to burn the house down. They just wanted to step outside. In their mind, they wanted a door. They wanted a door that they could leave slightly ajar. A door that allowed them to stand on the porch and feel the cool, detached breeze of their absolute independence, while still feeling the warm, comforting glow of your love radiating from inside. They wanted to hold the doorknob. They wanted the absolute uncontested power to open that door whenever they felt lonely, and gently click it shut the moment they felt engulfed by your expectations. They wanted you to be the house they could always return to, but never have to pay the mortgage for. But what did you do? When they asked for space, you didn't just close the door, you didn't just lock the deadbolt. Through your absolute unwavering, dignified no contact, you bricked it up. You took their request for space, and you gave them a solid, impenetrable wall. Imagine the psychological shock of the avoidant right now. The deactivation has faded. The delayed grief is crashing over them. The Phantom X is haunting their sleep. Their nervous system is screaming for regulation. So they walk back up to the porch. They reach out in the dark to jiggle the handle. They throw their little breadcrumbs, expecting the door to creak open, expecting you to welcome them back with desperate, tearful, anxious, open arms. But there is no handle anymore. There is no door. There is just cold, hard, unforgiving masonry. Your silence is the mortar. Your self-respect is the brick. This is the exact moment the illusion of their control shatters into a million unrecognizable pieces. Because for their entire life, their defense mechanism worked. It kept them safe. They dictated the terms of intimacy. They controlled the thermostat of the relationship. By giving them a wall, you fired them from